What is up, guys? Welcome to this video. In this one, I wanted to talk about overcoming reactivity and impulsiveness. Now let's get right into it. So I have 7 habits written on the board that you have to do in order to really get to the root of a lot of your reactivity. Now, not only do I have this, but I'm going to break down how reactivity works later on in the video. But first, I want to just briefly describe some of these habits that can help you to become more aware of reactivity and really get a very conscious feel of how to overcome it and basically what it is. Now, all these habits are designed to basically make you more self-aware, because reactivity boils down to just not being self-aware and having some sort of automatic outburst. Now, the first habit is meditation. I've talked about this a lot on my channel. I won't be spending too much time talking about it, but this is basically a practice where you basically just watch your thoughts, watch your feelings, bring awareness into your body, because our awareness is very lost basically in our thoughts constantly. It's lost in some sort of like mental realm that is totally disconnected from our feelings, from our body, from what's going on around us, from the people around us, from the things that matter the most to us. And this sort of place to be in, of being lost in thoughts all day, fuels reactivity. You're kind of easily agitated. It's not the most comfortable. It's a very sort of dull place to be as well. It's very dependent upon conditions, like your happiness and whether you're reactive or not is going to be very dependent upon things going your way versus things not going your way. And when things don't go your way, you're very likely to sort of maybe have an overreaction, get very impulsive, get very reactive. I'll be talking more about basically all this stuff as the video goes on. But the next one is writing. So writing down basically how reactivity feels. Get a pen and a paper, and you actually have to do this stuff. It's very practical, it's very hands-on. When you're reactive, you actually have to write down why you were reactive, how it felt, maybe the problems of it as well. And you basically want to just continue thinking and just kind of contemplating and being more aware of how the situation unfolded, but not from this perspective of wanting to, I guess, force yourself onto the situation, but more from a perspective of just being curious about how reactivity works in you and what is it actually doing. Because, like, what is the point of reactivity, which I'll be discussing later on throughout this video. Next one is reading, and this goes hand in hand with the next one, psychotherapy. So reading books on psychotherapy, I would recommend one fantastic book. It's called Bringing Your Shadow Out of the Dark by Robert Augustus Masters. You can find it on Amazon. Also, No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz. And I have another one right here. Another really good one right here. The Self-Acceptance Project. It's edited by Tammy Simon, and it's just a whole bunch of, I guess, like psychotherapists and teachers who, just teach you self-acceptance. It's a good book. Now, moving on, eating well and exercise. Of course, these are the next two, eating well and exercise. Get a good look at all of them. Of course, this will make you feel better, and when you feel good, you don't really have to be too reactive. You don't really necessarily, you're not pulled in by reactivity as easily, whereas when you're in a lower state, you're more easily affected by reactivity. You're more likely to just get agitated. And also watching, of course, the things you eat, like eating healthier foods, not drinking a bunch of coffee. Speaking of coffee, I had an espresso yesterday, and I noticed there was like a slight increase in overall restlessness. I had one little espresso, and it was just, I could notice that if I had more, I would be much more reactive, not very conscious, not very aware. It would just be more like impulsively doing things, kind of more, in a sense, jittery. I know we all probably have seen the sort of classic coffee drinkers who are just kind of jittery So avoid foods that make you feel numb, dull, jittery, anxious. You want foods that are going to make you feel light, clear, alive, vibrant, enthusiastic. And moving on is honesty, which is very important. So what I mean by this, and I have a whole playlist on honesty, is when we are reactive, we have to actually be honest with ourselves about how we are actually being reactive. So in the midst of reactivity, we actually have to state to ourselves that I'm being reactive. Instead of carrying out the sort of reactive impulse and force, just have the balls to say to yourself, I'm being reactive. It's a very courageous thing to do, especially when you're being reactive. Because when you're being reactive, you don't care about like honesty or anything like this. You don't care about being clear. You don't care about clarity or health. Like, you don't care about this stuff. You care about getting the thing that you want. Reactivity is a way that you get a specific thing that your ego wants. And basically, when you're being reactive, just bring your attention into your body, bring your awareness into your body, feel what's happening in your body, and just be clear about it to yourself. State to yourself, this is reactivity. And do it from a self-accepting and curious perspective, not from a self-shaming perspective, like, oh, I'm being reactive. Horrible am I? Reactivity is a part of human nature. To really be a very non-reactive person takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of deliberate concentration, study, a lot of care for oneself. And it's very actually rare to come across people who have this sort of level of mastery where they're just generally, not very reactive. If something doesn't go their way, or if someone says something to them, it doesn't really matter too much to them. They're, for the most part, basically completely okay with what's happening in the present moment. So these are a lot of habits that you have to basically implement in your life to have a very complete grasp of reactivity as it's happening to you, and how to sort of break free from these sort of patterns. I remember one of the first few times where I was meditating, I got angry as I was meditating, just anger arose. And then I just let it go. And this was one of the first few times, and my eyes shot open in a reactive way, because I couldn't believe it. It was like the first time I got angry, and I didn't just lose myself in the anger. I was able to just feel it and then just watch it pass away. And it was a totally different way of relating to anger, because when we get angry, it inspires us to do something, to take some kind of action, to start manipulating, to start trying to take control of something to get what we want in a very reactive way. And this was just a totally different way of analyzing anger, looking at it, relating to it. It wasn't judgmental. It wasn't like, it arises, I want it to go away. It can stay here, and it's naturally passing. I have no resistance to it, and I'm just watching it as it comes and as it goes. Now, moving on, of course, these are the habits. That's just a short little intro to this. I want to get into what reactivity is, and I want to show you like more of a real-time example of what it is. I think I just saw a spider, but whatever. So here I'm going to have thoughts. I hope thoughts. Emotions and instincts. All right, and these are all going to be neatly categorized, their own little section. So here we have three major facets of our experience. We have our thinking, our feelings, and our instincts. And these are actually communicating with each other in very complex ways. And our communication between all these different parts of ourselves is usually not the best unless you've deliberately worked on it. So thoughts talk to instincts, which talks to emotions, which talks to thoughts. And you can see these are all sort of just all connected. They're all very connected. They like to talk and they want to have a great time, but we're not really letting them do that. So when we pay attention to the relationship between these three key sort of categories that are happening within us, our understanding of reactivity can actually radically change. So not only do they talk to each other, but they, of course, carry out a lot of our behavior and our actions. So moving on, I'm going to extend this graph a little bit. So here, we're going to have the beliefs we have, beliefs, and then I guess, just the sort of feeling. And by feeling, I mean like sensory experience. So I'm just going to write, I'm going to write down sensory. Sensory. And this is mainly going to be the action. This is that sort of knee-jerk reaction that occurs when we're being reactive. Now, the world we live in, well, I live in, I live in the Western world, I live in Canada, but a lot of Western society and a lot of course, other societies, of course, are loaded with things to get your attention in a very impulsive way. Advertising is loaded with pushing people's fear button to get them to give their money over. A perfect example of this that just popped into my mind is those classic like acne commercials where they just show someone, I guess, like breaking out, and they're like, do you want clear skin? And it's kind of pushing that fear button of like, you know, you're insecure about your skin, so buy this product because it'll get rid of it. You know, that's an intention behind the whole way that they've constructed that commercial. A lot of course, weight loss programs, you know, you want to lose that 50 pounds. So, you know, it makes you feel kind of insecure, a little bit anxious, and it gets your attention, it gets you hooked, it gets you to instinctively basically pay attention to it because these things are so meaningful to us. They're so meaningful to our ability to get a lot of the things we want in life, like be attractive, for example. So our society is loaded with things that basically grasp at our attention and try and just hold it, And you can notice how a lot of this stuff plays out in moments like that. So not only, society, but at a very practical level in your life. Someone says something you don't like, and you have a belief about it. Like they shouldn't be doing this. This shouldn't be happening. Like they're wrong, they shouldn't think that, they should think this. And then you have a particular feeling about it, which leads to a particular action. So when we are in a state of reactivity, we have to bring our awareness into our body and actually keep it there. We can't let it run off into our beliefs and all our nonsense. We actually have to bring our awareness into our body and see how being reactive affects our body. And when you do that, you'll notice a lot of particular qualities that show up repeatedly whenever you're being reactive. There's a sense of being contracted, a sense of being tight, being rigid, in many cases just being angry. So there's a sense of being closed, being rigid, being tight, being tense in our body. And this is basically our body trying to defend itself. It's like bracing for something bad to happen. Now, of course, it's not easy when you're being reactive to admit to yourself that you're being reactive or to actually feel it in the moment. Like in that moment, our sort of automatic impulses take us over. And in that moment, you have to snap out of it, which is, it's like you're going against the grain doing that because you've done this pattern over and over and over and over again, that to go against it is almost like you're pushing a boulder uphill. It's like you've just been letting the boulder fall downhill, and now it's like it requires some effort. It requires some attention, some very deliberate and intentional effort to go against this pattern. So when we bring our attention into our body, mainly like our gut, our chest, we might feel our chest close down, we might feel our gut get tense, we might feel our jaw get tense, facial expressions, of course. Our hands might go into, a little bit of a fist. So when we do that, it's important to actually state in our mind, I'm being reactive. And just not judge yourself in any kind of way, but just observe yourself. Just observe what's happening and accept what's happening, that I'm being reactive. And just stating that in a very clear way to yourself so you can have actual clarity in your life. Now that's done with, moving on, I want to talk about a lot of the beliefs that are behind reactivity. So whenever you react, there's one belief that is consistent throughout any reaction. And it's this belief that if I don't react to this situation, something bad is going to happen. Because reactivity is a defensive mechanism. It's based off survival. And that is very deeply rooted in us and really has its grip on us. All these sort of defensive mechanisms, these survival-based mechanisms. But once again, the belief is, if I don't react, something bad will happen. And you have to really get that. Whether you react or not, it doesn't matter, which I'm going to come back to. But if you look at a lot of the times when you react, is something bad actually going to happen? Like, is your life in danger? Or is there just like some, disagreement or some minor thing that isn't going your way that really, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter? So when you're being reactive, you have to actually realize that what you're reacting to really doesn't matter. Like, this is a liberating thing, that I actually don't have to react to this thing. It's something I'm unconsciously doing, and it doesn't actually need the reaction from me. So basically, a lot of the thoughts we can have when we're being reactive is, this person is so bad or something. They shouldn't think this. They shouldn't be doing this. This is outrageous. It's this kind of angry attitude, typically. And it can basically be associated with wanting something very specific, a very specific thing that you want, and not getting it, which then causes you to react. And that can be an actual physical thing, like wanting a child wanting a toy, and I guess he doesn't have it, so he starts being reactive. He throws like a temper tantrum. He believes he should have the toy. He doesn't have the toy. He feels angry about it, and then he starts screaming and yelling. We can see the thoughts, emotions, and instincts all playing out right there. So there's a sense of, if I don't have what I want, something bad is going to happen, and I'll be in danger. Like, this is wrong, this is bad, it shouldn't be like this. That's the general attitude that we have when we're being reactive. And it's just false. It's just not true. We have to see that as a bias that we have, and that this whole attitude of it should be this particular way, this will just never work. Okay, like, when it does work, it's somewhat rare. But this whole approach of like forcing ourselves onto the world, onto other people, onto situations, this will never really make us happy. Even if we get the thing that we want, if that child gets the toy, how long is it going to be until he gets bored of it and he starts screaming because he wants a new toy? And then over and over and over and over again. So we have to get that reactivity is a way to defend us against a threat that we perceive. It's a perceived threat. We are making sense of a situation, and we're attaching to it a lot of beliefs that have to do with this being a threatening situation. Something's wrong, it's bad, we're not going to get what we want, it's not going our way, it shouldn't be like this. Yeah. Now, I want to go back to how it doesn't matter, because this is big. Whether you react or whether you don't react doesn't matter. So when you do react, you don't got to make a big deal out of it. Whatever. I got reactive. You just state it to yourself. What's important is that you have the intention to kind of clean this up, to work on it, to become conscious of it, to become aware of it. That's great. But when you get reactive, it's okay. And expect yourself to get reactive in life if you've never worked on it, because this is like a skill that you actually have to develop. You have to return to it over and over and over again. You actually have to watch it. You have to love this process as well. You have to actually be curious about why you get reactive and how it works. So get that whether you react or not doesn't really doesn't matter. So because it doesn't matter, you don't really have to react. Most situations that you are reactive in don't require this knee-jerk, impulsive reactivity. It's not like you're being chased by a bear and your actual life is in danger and you have to just immediately get up and run. It's usually like something didn't go your way, some social situation, you got rejected and now you're, I guess, angry, like you got insulted and now you're frustrated and you're being impulsive, you're having knee-jerk reactions. Socially is one of the best domains, the whole social domain. This is one of the best places to watch our reactivity because we want things out of people, and when they don't give it to us, we tend to get kind of frustrated with them. We get very angry, we get impulsive, we start reacting, especially in intimate relationships, of course, that's huge. So it's important to just seek and have an honest and sincere intention to investigate and become more aware of our reactivity. So the reactivity is basically never necessary. For the most part, it's never necessary. Very rarely is it ever going to be necessary. And that's an actual, basically life-threatening situation where, I guess, you're about to get into a car accident and you go, holy shit, and you swerve. And in that case, being reactive saved your life. Or a bear is chasing you, a lion, whatever. Some genuinely threatening situation to you. Now, most of the time, of course, when we get reactive, it's just not that. It's just something kind of petty. Someone disagrees with us. Someone threatens our ego and what we want. They threaten our self-agenda. Now, we put a lot of importance onto situations that we react to. You have to get that when you're being reactive, you see the situation as important. Like you're giving it a lot of meaning. And really for what? Like might be an ordinary conversation, or like you're just giving it too much importance. You're really like you are just valuing it too much. It doesn't mean that the whole thing is meaningless and it's like this whole sad thing. I'm just saying that the things that you are taking seriously most likely aren't as serious as you're taking them to be. They probably just, you can probably have a significantly more casual attitude towards the things that you usually get reactive to. And not only will that actually help, but it's just also more, of course, appropriate for the situation. And it's a more truthful place to come from rather than just wanting to force your way onto a situation, impose your will onto a situation in this sort of dictator-like way. And it just feels better. All around, it just feels a lot better. So if you're watching this video, I'm sure you like the idea of not being reactive and just being, I guess, more casual. But really in practice and in direct experience, this isn't an easy thing to do, which is why I gave you those 7 habits. And that's why I'm breaking it down in this organized way for you, so you can get a better idea of what's happening. So I'll give you a very practical example. Let's say you wake up and, I don't know, let's say someone's being loud and it wakes you up. Okay, now you have a belief. They shouldn't be doing this. and it's too early, you're still too tired, you're still tired, you think they shouldn't be doing this. That's a belief. That's a belief we have that is going to affect our behavior, because it's going to make us feel kind of angry, kind of bitter towards them, and we're going to want to force our will upon them, basically to get them to stop. Which there's nothing wrong with. Let's say someone's being loud, you talk to them, say, hey, it's just a little loud, can you just quiet it down? But I want you to get how this process is just happening so automatically and basically on its own. And how our interpretation of the situation is, of course, going to affect our sort of behavior. So when we get rid of that belief that they should be doing this, this can really change how we go about interacting with the situation. Because maybe they didn't know you were sleeping or something like that, whatever it is. So when we begin to just blatantly throw out the beliefs we have about a situation or a person, we can actually begin to relate to it from a more present and clear way that is free from our biases, which help us to just feel better and be less reactive and just be more, I guess, loving people towards others, ourselves, and basically all living beings. Doesn't that sound nice? But another situation is basically any time someone is doing something that you don't want them to do, and you have the belief somewhere in you that this shouldn't be happening or they shouldn't be doing this. And then noticing how that triggers anger or any kind of tense, like a feeling of some kind, even jealousy, something like that. And then how you then act based off of that process. So you have to see it. It can be kind of linear, to be honest. It's not really always going to play out like this, but you can see how it might start here, move to here, and then move to here. And of course, a lot of the situations that we're reactive in, it's due to this pattern. It's due to this conditioning that just is playing itself out automatically because we haven't investigated it. We haven't changed our beliefs. We haven't really cleaned up our emotional system. And basically, by doing this, you're bound to screw up your life. By being reactive, by basically not seeing this for the, let's say, 80 years that a person lives, sometimes less, sometimes more. I don't know what the average lifespan is where you live. But like, you have to really get that. You have to become conscious of this in order to just live a good life. And that without it, you're just going to be stuck in this cycle of shit for your whole life, and you're not really going to know why. You're not really going to know what's happening. You're just going to kind of do it like an animal. It's just going to be this automatic and unconscious process that really is void of any intelligence whatsoever. It's just so stupid to do this for 80 years, for an entire lifespan. Really, the way to clean this up is, it can just be boiled down to this: awareness and honesty. If you are not conscious of it with a sincere and honest intention, you will just not clean it up. You just won't care. So you actually need to have practices in your life that help to see this, and you need a theory. That's why I recommended that book, Bringing Your Shadow Out of the Dark by Robert Augustus Masters. You have to care more about how emotions work, and basically what emotions are doing, and how unconscious you actually are. This kind of stuff is not very easy. It's not like a light dinner conversation, like the nature of human reactivity and shame and anger and fear. It's not like a casual thing, and it can be kind of threatening. But this kind of stuff is absolutely essential for creating that actual sense of being well that you desire so much. Because a lot of the stuff we do, we just want to be well. We want to avoid suffering and feel good. And this, process of just becoming conscious is one of the most important things you can do for yourself if you just want to feel good. But I know, it's up to you. So I want you to, of course, just see this playing out. And I want you to apply this in your own life. I want you to see how practical it gets. When you're, reactive or angry in a situation, I want you to see that you have a belief about how it should be and how it's not that. You have a sense of anger or frustration, tension, whatever it is, and then you have an action that it's a manipulation. It's a forceful action just to kind of get what you want. It's very short-sighted, really. It's just, of course, reactive. So this is basically the end of the video. If you guys have any questions at all, let me know in the comment section below. And other than that, take it easy.